This is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM. And we have with us at WZRD Postal employee Pat Gibbons to discuss the current state of a lot of the affairs of the United States Postal Service. Good morning, Pat. How are you today?
Good. I'm good. Thank you for having me on the show, Trudy.
Uh, Pat, if possible, try to not mention my name on the air.
Oh,
As
okay.
the wizards try to remain anonymous while we're on the air.
Of course, of course.
Okay. Well, Pat, first of all, tell us how long you have worked at the post office and different positions that you have held so that our listeners understand better your experience.
Well, I'm a mail handler at the United States Postal Service. I've been working at the Postal Service for 3 years, and I love the job. It's a really good job. I work in a distribution center. It's in Elk Grove Village, and it's open 24 hours, and we process the mail. It's a lot of work, heavy work. We process the mail by lifting heavy boxes, heavy packages, heavy parcels, and we put it onto a conveyor belt, and it's processed, and it's loaded into a truck essentially, and it goes to where it needs to go to.
When you load, so are you like the midpoint about, let's say if I were to send a package, then how many different points let's say you are one of the distribution points for my package.
Mhm.
So at which point would my package reach you? Let's say.
Oh, it all depends. Everything is scanned, so you know exactly where your package is going to. And if you, let's say you put your letter in the mailbox, I would say within less than less than a day, 12 hours, it goes into a distribution center,
Mhm.
and very quickly it's processed and it goes onto a truck or your package, what have you, and you should get within 3 to 5 business days. That's usually how it takes, unless it's expedient mail,
Mhm.
priority mail.
Yes. Well, what about the letters? So you're handling the big packages and the little bitty letters. Are they separate so that they don't get stuck under the packages or between the packages?
Everything is separate.
Mm.
There's different machines within the distribution center that breaks down each piece of mail where it should go.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when they're divided into the different types of mails, let's say letters and packages and boxes,
Mhm.
is it the people that do the dividing, or is it the machine that sorts it into the different
Well, the
categories?
people put it on the machine, and the machine works itself where it goes into the respective zip codes.
Mhm.
It drops into a bag, and these bags within the distribution center, it's actually knitted and made in the prisons, in the federal prisons, and it's given to the postal service, oddly enough, and the mail's dropped into these bags, and the bags are tied, and the bags itself is scanned and processed, and it goes into a truck, and the folks at the loading dock, they scan it again. So your package is scanned several times before it's loaded out, so you know exactly where it's going.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And do you have any experience about at the post office? Because I've seen people that work at the post office, when they receive like maybe mail, they're still like dividing it into different mailboxes of the
Hmm.
addresses, and then they kind of gather them together, right? And
Hmm.
then those little bundles go with the mail carrier.
Exactly. Everything is broken down. Um, and of course, mail carriers, they have a hard job, but they take a test, they have to know their route very well, the streets very well, and you have the best of the best delivering mail for you.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And when you say that there's like you do the boxes and a lot of heavy lifting. Uh, do you know that recently Postmaster General DeJoy said that he wants to cut down these distribution centers. Do you know the plan? So how is mail going to be processed if these distribution centers are going to be, some of them are going to be eliminated?
The Postmaster General has a interesting plan. It's a 10-year plan. And you're correct. He wants to combine distribution centers. So the one I'm at is closing down within 2 years. That's the one. It's called Chicago Metro Hub. It's on Bussy, and it's going to close down within 2 years. And um, there's going to be a huge consolidation. The good thing is for mail handlers, it states, it stipulates in the contract, if you're turned over, you don't lose your job. But the catch 22 is you have to wait and see where you're going to. That is the question mark. Of course, you have MHAs that are not turned over, and turnover means basically you're 100% United States Postal Service employee employed by the federal government and a contract. There's a contract for you and all that stuff. You're backed by a union. MHAs, also clerks who they have their own union. See, there's different unions. Clerks have their own union. Mail handlers have their own union. Carriers have their own union, you know. So if you're like an assistant, you don't have those perks. You're like job security and stuff. We have job security, but when distribution centers are closed down, then you have to wait. It's a wait and see where you go. And my advice to my brothers and sisters at the Postal Service, when you're waiting, if you're waiting, collect unemployment, and then when they tell you where you're going, that's when you go. So don't suffer right away. Collect unemployment. I know we had a sister building across the street that was assisting during COVID. You know, they were packaging COVID packages. You know, the mask, what have you, the protective stuff. And that building closed down, I want to say around Christmas time, November last year. And what was sad about it is the folks, they seen a note by the time clock, building closing down the day before, and that was it. So many people lost their jobs. So many people didn't know what to do. So there was no ample warning for them, you know? And upper management has a tendency of doing that because they don't want you to quit right away. You know, they want to get that mail out. So it's a catch 22. But people talk. People talk within the circles, and we know that the building's closing down, so we're prepared. We don't want nothing like that happening to us. And that's why I'm on the show. I want to get the word out, find out if your distribution center is closing down so you can prepare yourself, even though in some facilities, upper management doesn't want to tell you that, which is, I don't like that. That stinks, you know?
That building that closed, was that only a distribution for the PPE for the entire U.S. Postal Service? That when they got the pink slip just like on the day of closing?
It was for access mail.
Access mail.
PPE, yes, was a big part of it, but there's a a season within the post office. We call it peak season. Peak season means during holiday season, volume is very high with packages. You know, parcels very high, very high. So going back to DeJoy's 10-year plan, he doesn't want anything going on the air. You know, I mean, like planes, no more packages on planes unless it's foreign mail. He wants everything by trucks, distributed by trucks, which is very interesting. And he's even stated, your job, we're going to even have more mail handlers. We want more mail handlers. So our jobs are safe, but he wants trucks distributing mail. He wants to take away the planes, and he's consolidating everything to, like, he will close down 3 distribution centers and consolidate it into one. And you see that all over the country. We have a gal that just started with us from Atlanta, and she said her distribution center where she was at closed down. The one she was going to transfer to in Atlanta is closing down, and she went to Chicago to the one I'm at, which is closing down. So it's all over the place. So we, as workers for the Postal Service, we have to be careful and we have to look and do our homework to see if our distribution center is closing down so we can prepare ourselves in the future.
What is an MHA again?
MHA.
Mhm.
MHA is a mail handler assistant. I'm a mail handler. So MHAs, they don't have MHAs, they don't have, like I said, the same rights or privileges, whatever the word terminology you want to use, as we do, because you're never really protected by a contract. They say you have rights and your union protects you, but at the end of the day, I mean, unions can only do so much. It's basically the three things that will get you fired at the United States Postal Service is attendance. Attendance is one, stealing mail is two, or fighting. One, two, three. These are the three things that'll get you fired. So basically, when you're turned over, I don't want to say you're untouchable, but it's hard for them to get rid of you. So you always have a job at the end of the day, but it's that waiting period when your distribution center closes. You hope to have a job right away because you can only put so many people at one distribution center. Before you know, there's people on top of people, and that's going to be the interesting part. It's kind of scary too, especially during COVID, and we still have COVID going around. I don't know if it's the greatest idea of getting like hundreds and hundreds of employees in one facility. So we'll see what happens with that.
Mhm. When you say people upon people, you mean there will be like more hands on deck to work the mail? Would that make it quicker? Or what do you mean by people on
It
people?
all depends on the worker's attitude if the mail goes out quicker. You can have 100 people um working an app machine. Apps machines, by the way, are these big machines that distributes mail. And ideally speaking, you need at least 25 people per apps machine. Okay. So if you have less than 25 people and you have like 15 people, which is the case at these many of these distribution centers, there's simply not enough people. It depends how hard the worker is. It depends also too, it's I want to get into deeper the psychology of the postal worker. Most postal workers, specifically mail handlers, we're only going to receive a 1.5% raise. That's what our contract stipulates. And our cost of living adjustment was like $208. $208 for a whole entire year when the cost of living is through the roof, your gas is through the roof, your natural gas in your house is through the roof, groceries is through the roof, all of that nonsense. Only a 1.5% raise. You're going into a distribution center, and the folks I work with is hard workers, where you have upper management that doesn't want to tell you, hey, this place is closing down, but we found out anyways. And then you also have demanding people that want to get the mail out. So it's a very stressful and frustrating job when you don't make much money. And then you have to worry about when am I going to have a job at the end of the day? And it's just the respect I want to say for the postal worker has gone down considerably within the last 10, 20 years or so because I have friends that are retired and it's a shame. And also too, the qual I want to say that, and we'll get into this, safety too with our mail carriers has become a huge issue. The safety, um, with the cuts left and right, uh, postal police, they don't follow mail carriers on the respective routes. So that is a invitation to the criminal element, to come in and do whatever they want. So that's a huge issue too. So we have to deal with safety issues, a very hard work environment, upper management not always, the nicest, they keep secrets from you, and the raise is simply not good enough, especially for a government worker that does a great job like we do day after day.
Mm. When how did you start working at the post office? Were you a mail handler from the beginning, or did you move up?
No, you start off as an MHA,
Mm.
like anybody, unless you know somebody. Now, there's been cases where MHAs were turned over the first day. Obviously, they know somebody. There's no secret. There's a lot of politics in the postal service, and everybody knows about it. There's politics all over the place. Who knows? Maybe it's a daughter of some senator. Who knows? But we've seen that. Me, it took me over a year to turn over, which is, it's pretty quick. That's pretty quick. And I went through a process. You have to, the biggest, you know, the biggest thing they look at is attendance. Is your attendance good? Are you coming there on time? Are you doing your job? And I did. So that's why I was turned over. And I mean that was after a year, and I've been turned over after 2 years, and I've been there over all 3 years. But to look at your retirement benefits, they look at the time you were turned over. So technically in the system, they had me down for 2 years, but I say three because I started in 2020 of June. So
So you got turned over and after first year or after 2 years?
after my first year, I got turned over in 2021 in June. I started in 2020 of June, and it's been 3 years now.
And did you hear about the job, or did you have friends that were already in the working at this job?
Actually, good question. My dad told me to apply at the post office. He said that's a great job, great benefits, great starting pay. Back 20 years ago, he was right. It was great starting pay. They would start you off over 20 bucks an hour 20 years ago, which was great money. Now they start you off at a mail handler or MHA, I should say, or an assistant for a clerk. There's an abbreviation, an acronym for that. I don't know. PSE, I think it's called PSE. And they start you off at a PSE like 17 something an hour. They start you off at an MHA at 16 something an hour. But they tell you, you know what? You can make it up with the overtime. They give you so much overtime because they want to overwork you. And there's a lot of postal employees after their first year, they suffer from burnouts because they don't realize that yes, the money is so good, but the job is very hard. It's not like security. I used to work security where you're sitting at a desk and you can do 10, 12 hours a day easily and look at your phone. That it's not like that. It's back-breaking work, I'm telling you. You pick up heavy packages that are over 80 pounds, okay? And then you haul off these big BMCs, these APCs, and you're putting it into big loading trucks. And then you have what is called bed loads. I'm giving you a lot of postal. You can tell I work for the post office because I know all these terms. Bed loads, which means you take everything off these APCs and BMCs and you put it in a loading truck. I'm talking about 80-pound boxes. I'm talking about big old bags, the same bags you get from the federal prison. I'm sure there's a contract. I'm talking federal prisoners. They actually knit these bags together and they give it to us and we load mail into it and we're loading. I'm not saying it's essentially a prison, but it's hard work. And then you load it into a truck for a raise of 1.5%. That's ridiculous, I feel our union should have fought better for a better contract, okay? A better contract for the work we do every day. They say they fight for us, but I don't know. 1.5%, it doesn't cut the mustard. You know what I mean? I don't think it does.
Have you ever thought about being a union steward and then having a say in what your union does?
Trust me, many times I would love to do work as a union steward because I guarantee you I would do everything in my power to not disrespect my employees with a 1.5% raise, with a cost of living adjustment of $208 when everything's going up through the roof. That's just ridiculous. Rent is $1,400 a month. What are you going to do with $208? Are you kidding me?
What are your hours like on the average? And do your hours and does your schedule change every week, or is it?
No, ma'am. It's we don't call it shifts. We call it tours. And the last shift, I don't want maybe in civilian life, yeah, but it's true. In average everyday working life, your night shift is typically what, 11 to 7:30. So that's our first tour. Your third shift is our first tour. And second shift would be tour number 3. And what would be your regular first shift, which is 7 a.m. to 3:30, is actually tour number 2. So I work tour number 3 from 3 to 11:30, and that's solid, you know. That's called a bid. Another terminology, ladies and gentlemen, a bid. So it takes a while before you get a bid. It's not just being turned over now. It's a bid. And once you get that bid, it takes about 3, 4, 5 times to get that bid, which means a location within the facility you want to go to. What they do in between, I mean, upper management, they put you anywhere they want to put you, even at the hardest spot within the facility. And again, burnouts left and right. People are just burnt out because of the hard work, because there's nothing to look forward to, and it shouldn't be like that. I know my brothers and sisters at the United States Postal Service. They're depressed. They're loving and they're nice people. They have the greatest sense of humor, but they're absolutely depressed. They're listening to headphones to get through the day. It's not like a joyous thing, you know. And then you have managers going around like they're from, I don't know, Gestapo or something, you know, looking around, seeing if you're doing your job, making sure you're not on your phone. But hey, maybe you have an emergency text message from your mom or your dad or your wife. You have to look at your phone. And they're and what the funny thing is, these upper management, they're on their phone. They're on their phone, you know? So here's the thing. I know I'm going off, but listen, you're in between and a little spot in a little area, which is an assignment, they tell you where to go. There's actually a terminology for that. I forget what it's called. And then finally you get your bid after 4 or 5 bids, okay? But that's only the start. That's only the start, because then once you got your bid, you have to deal with seniority. You understand? Seniority. So everybody looks at seniority like it's the all everything, you know what I mean? So when upper management can't find enough MHAs because essentially they're fired or whatever, they got rid of them, or the people they put in areas because they have no say so, they look at seniority. You understand? So if you got your bid and you're lucky, hey, I have my bid, and the first couple of months you establish yourself, you're called a junior, okay, basically. A junior something, a junior postal worker. That's your status. You're a junior. So they could put you still anywhere they want you to. So in order to have absolute security, and that's not even a definite, I would say at least what, 20 years in the postal service, and then they'll kind of ignore you because you got all that seniority, you have your bid, you're turned over. That's if your distribution center doesn't close down on you before upper management tells you the day before. And that's what we deal with. It's a lot of pressure. And for 1.5%, that's peanuts. We deserve more.
Let's get some of these terms settled. Like, what is a BMC and what is an AMC?
No, APC.
APC.
BMC is a big old loading container. It's huge. It's like it weighs 2 tons. You can't lift it. It's on wheels. And it can be very dangerous if you're not looking. Okay, there's a lot of blind spots with a BMC, and we use these BMCs on loading docks. Okay, and it covers a lot of bags of mail inside the BMC. It's a huge container,
Okay.
a huge steel container.
Is it like a vehicle or is it?
No,
it's a transport.
It's a transporting cart with wheels underneath, 4 wheels, and it has little holes, and there is a door in the middle where you can open it and just put the bags inside. Okay. An APC is essentially the same thing. It's an equipment that you use to put bags in, packages, parcels, what have you. You know, but it's less weight than a BMC, and you can move it. I would say better. It's not as strenuous as a BMC. With a BMC, with a full BMC of mail, you need to have some strength behind it, okay? Even with wheels, because those things are heavy. And I deal with, I would say, 200-300 BMCs a day, on a loading dock.
Do you have to push them onto the loading dock? What do you do?
Yes, I pushed them onto the loading dock. I pushed them off the loading dock. I pushed them in a truck. I pushed them off a truck. It's left and right, left and right, left and right, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah.
You spoke earlier about being on the phone. Is there a penalty for being on the phone?
Oh, supposedly it is, but you know, they call that when they give you a discipline, it's called a PDI.
Mhm.
That's another term.
For a write-up, kind of.
It's called a pre-disciplinary interview, disciplinary,
Mhm.
pre-disciplinary interview. Okay, PDI.
Mhm.
And you have to be represented by your union steward when they give you a PDI.
Mhm.
If there's any discrepancies, your union steward's right there writing notes. And more times than not, upper management, they talk themselves into nonsense where it's overridden because they don't follow the contract. There's a contract, and there's also situations where, you know, it was not as bad as management, you know, said it was. Because a lot of times, I have to say this, not all managers, because there's some nice upper management, and I know some of them. They're absolute gentlemen and nice ladies, but there's some of them where the title just simply gets to their head. You know what I mean? And when they have no understanding whatsoever, they don't look at you as a human being. They look at you as another body, and it's sad. And you know, I see it. I see the hypocrisy of it. I see the fakeness of it. I really do. And my friends do too. For instance, when we have someone that passes away and they worked with us, and usually I hate to say it, it's a heart attack. It's a heart attack because the stress from this job is so stressful, so strenuous, and it takes so much out of your body. A lot of postal workers have heart attacks even after retirement. They'll like retire, and after 2 years you hear them they passed away because they're not moving. They move for 30, 40 years of their life, and all of a sudden they have health issues because they're not moving their body like they used to. So we see these folks, you know, my friends, at at the clock with a picture, so and so passed away. And it's very sad. It's very sad. And then I hear the hypocrisy and the fakeness of certain upper managers saying how good he was, how great he was. I'm thinking to myself, you were not like that when this gentleman was still alive, okay? But you're saying this because he passed away. So there should be, you know, some human dignity, you know, when you're an upper manager. But the criteria of that, they don't look at that when you become upper manager. In fact, they don't even look at your education. A lot of upper management is simply hired through favoritism. And it's true, through favoritism. They have no experience. I've seen postal employees become managers within 2 or 3 months. And I'm thinking to myself, what experience do you have? For exception of having a very loud mouth, you know, and that's what we have to deal with inside closed quarters. And a lot of my brothers and sisters, they're scared to talk up because they fear that they will lose their job. But the fact is, you don't lose your job. The three things, again, I'll say it again, that will lose your job at the Postal Service: stealing money or stealing packages, attendance, and fighting.
Mhm.
Talking up does not, no, that's your First Amendment right, and you have every right to talk up if you don't like what's going on.
So have any of your coworkers that do talk and express the issues, have they received any retaliation? And also, are there any people that have spoken up and then they got better positions as a result of that?
Well, there's always retaliation. And when you see that, you have to report it right away to the union so it's documented. I can't stress enough paperwork, paper trail, paperwork, 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 paperwork. If you smell something that's biased, you do paperwork. You write a grievance. And your union steward will keep note of it. And that's very important. And you save that paperwork and you take a picture of that paperwork. You understand? Because if you don't take a picture of that paperwork, and let's say the paperwork is lost, then you don't have a history. It's good to have a history with that boss that is giving you a hard time. Now, for the folks that and that's another thing. Transferring out a facility is very tough too. It's not as easy as you think. First and foremost, you have to find out if the facility you're going to has an opening. And if you want to keep your seniority, you have to what is called switch with another employee at another facility. And that's very hard to do because most people don't want to swap with you, you know? So basically, if you go to another facility, you're starting from the beginning. And everybody knows at the Postal Service, if you start from the beginning, you're going through hell once again, and you simply don't want to do that.
When you switch, is it with someone that has comparable seniority, or just someone that's willing to switch?
It all depends. I think it's a little bit of both. Um, more than more than likely, you're not going to be able to switch with someone at another facility that's been there 20 plus years. They're comfortable. Your best bet is to switch with someone that's been there maybe less than 5 years. And it all depends the position too, you know. Um, it depends on distance. I know a lot of um, my coworkers, they take public transportation, so switching with them would be, wouldn't work out because they wouldn't be able to go to another facility that's 7, 8 miles out of their way. So there's a lot of underlining intangibles when it comes to switching with someone. So essentially, what I'm trying to say is you're stuck where you're at.
What
You're
are the
stuck.
reasons that someone would want to change? I would think that when I'm at my place of employment, usually people that want to transfer out is because they're moving, or then they want to work somewhere that's closer to where their new place is.
It's a little bit of both. But when you first start out, when you apply for the Postal Service, but back 20 years ago, you need to take a test. That's how it works. You need to take a test and you need to have a passing score in order to be a United States postal worker.
Is
Nowadays, sorry to interrupt, this is very important. Nowadays, there is no test. There's not even a drug test. They don't do drug tests. And to me, that's not right. Why are you not drug testing anymore? So what they do now is they just when I'm talking about when they screen for new postal employees, they just do fingerprints. They just look at your background and see if you have any felonies. You could have a boatload of misdemeanors, but that's okay. If you don't have no felonies, you're in. And you start off as an MHA or a PSE, whatever, and you go through a process which is attendance. That's all. You come to work, you do your job, and then boom, you're turned over. That's why MHAs start off at 16 something an hour. That's why PSE start off at 17 something an hour. That's how the Postal Service they get away with that. The upper echelon. They figure to pay them bare bones minimum, and doing so, we won't give them a stressful entrance as a test because back in the day, the money was great. It was over $20 an hour, and you had solid workers. The workflow was good. What the Postal Service should do is they should go back to that. Have a test for people to come in, have a drug test, all of that stuff, have better screening, and then your workload would be so much better. That's just my opinion.
Mhm. Well, when you mentioned that for the drug test, do you mean that there are some people that are impaired and then they don't do their job and that affects everyone?
Well, here's the thing. Once you're in, and once, like I said, you're turned over, you could appear to be a suicidal nutcase. Okay? It doesn't matter. You're turned over. There's absolutely nothing they can do to you. I remember there was an employee that would just yell in the top of his lungs, yell at the top of his lungs, say crazy things. He would throw boxes. He would stomp on the floor. He would sleep in BMCs. And nobody did anything to this guy because he was turned over. there's so much stuff that goes on within a closed facility, and it's all hush hush. No one talks about it. But this is what happens when you're turned over. I'm telling you, you're basically untouchable. But if the post office went back to appropriate screening and testing, I guarantee you the workflow would be much better. But they're going and they're doing this liberal accepting of everybody, and they're wondering why the workflow is not as good as it used to be. Go back to where it was 20 years ago, where the workflow was beautiful, have good testing, drug testing, and then the quality of workers you would get will be much better. It's just that simple. But the postal service became so liberal, they're accepting everyone. You know what I mean?
When you talk about the civil service exam, is that the basic civil service exam that all federal employees receive, or is there one specific to the post office?
It's specific to the post office. They would give you questions of what streets, number in the streets, and you would have to know. It was very difficult at the time. It was at the same par as a police test, and police exams were very tough at the time. Going like there was a recent the Supreme Court knocked down affirmative action. You heard that this past weekend. That's good. That's a beautiful thing. When you go into something in life, this is just my way, and this is the way I was raised. You earn it. You earn it. It should not be given to you. And I love my job with all my heart. I really do, working at the United States Postal Service. But I much rather take a test and earn it to come in than someone giving it to me and say, just do attendance and do your job. Well, anybody can do that.
So you didn't have to take a test?
No, I did not have to, and years ago you had to take a test. And my cousin, good guy, his name is Mickey. He said that I had to take a test in order to get in, and I didn't pass it because it was so hard. I don't understand why everybody's now getting into the postal service. Well, that's the reason why. There's no more drug tests, and there's no testing.
Do you know if when they did have testing, did they get enough employees? Was it that maybe a lot of people did not pass the test and they weren't able to find a large enough pool of employees?
That was not the reason. Well, the reason is because, and I can say it, it's because they want to cater to all people. You know what I mean? So I'm walking a delicate line here, so I got so they want to involve all walks of life inside the postal service. So they're not looking at your test scores anymore, which is a shame. And they're not looking at the most qualified anymore, and that's a shame too. So it's they just basically open the door for everyone, and they're wondering why the quality of work is not being done appropriately like it was 20 years 20 years ago. Getting back, that you didn't have this issue with the mail being late. Okay, you didn't have this issue with oh, where's my mail, or the mail going to the wrong address. You didn't have this issue. Now you do. Now you have this issue, and the reason why you have this issue now is because there's no testing. Okay, and there should be testing. There should be drug tests. And get that back, Mr. DeJoy wants to also have robots. I kid you not. Look at United States Postal Service robots, USPS robots on YouTube. He wants to replace us in time with robots. I'm not making this up. So he wouldn't have to think like that if, you know, if the quality of workers coming in would do a good job. And that's the part. But also too, there's a lot of underlying intangibles. The good workers are burnt out by upper management. And like I said, these apps machines that needs 25 workers are reduced to 10. And these are the 10 people that does do a good job from day to day. And they're simply overworked. And these are the folks with burnt out syndrome. The slackers, they take days off. They don't want to come to work. They sleep in BMCs. And it's okay. And I kid you not, in a month or two, they become your manager. That's exactly what happens at the post offices within the confines. It's crazy. But you get used to that. If you're used to a public high school and CPS, you're kind of used to that drama. That's what I'm saying.
When unions negotiate contracts, do they negotiate separately, or do you know if there is any instance of the different unions negotiating together with the U.S. Post Office?
But here's the thing with that. Unions are known for giving huge donations to Democratic candidates, and it's true. It's a known fact. For instance, SEIU Local 1 gave thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars to Rahm Emanuel. SEIU Local 73 has given thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars to Johnson, the current mayor that doesn't have a safety plan. Crime has been up over 40% this past month, and it's an outrage. So this union, which is, I believe 301 for mail handlers, they do the same thing. Our dues, knowingly or unknowingly, like it or not, goes to campaigns of Democratic candidates. Okay, and everything's in closed doors, in closed quarters. Does unions talk to Democrats? They probably do, because you see Dick Durbin up there at the podium with the head of the union for the clerk, or for the, excuse me, the mail carriers. I forget the gal's name, but she's the head of the mail carriers union, and she's right there at the podium with Dick Durbin, who's talking about safety for mail carriers, how it's essential, and he's talking about the arrow keys, that opens up mailboxes, as if he's a big, as if he's smart and knowledgeable about all the everything when it comes to mail carriers and everything when it comes to post office. No, he's not. He just wants airtime. I'm telling you, Dickie D, at the end of the day, all he wants to do is put his feet on the coffee table and collect his six-figure salary. He doesn't care about mail carriers. The only way to get safety back for mail carriers is you bring back the postal police that used to go with the mail carriers on their routes. Okay. And these heads of unions, they're this is just a say, they're in bed with Democrats that don't care about you. And at the end of the day, the blue collar worker, my brothers and sisters at the United States Postal Service is screwed because we only get a 1.5% raise. I mean, I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, I can care less, okay? I can really care less. But Democrats really have destroyed this country and this city. But when you try to put groceries on the table, try to pay your rent, try to put gas in your car, how can you do that with a 1.5% raise? It's ridiculous.
When you when you say that they're not doing anything, so what are the legislators doing? Absolutely nothing, or do you know if there some legislators are doing something to improve the U.S. Postal Service?
Well, supposedly there's I forget the gentleman's name, another Democrat said that we should have safe spaces for mail carriers, safe spaces, just like you have for CPS students. I have to just say this, and I'm going to say it like it is. There's no safe space in Inglewood. There's no safe space in Austin. There's no safe space on a lot of the south side and west sides of Chicago. But simply put, it's a war zone.
So
It's a
what
war.
does he mean by,
There's no safe spaces.
so what do they mean by safe space? Because if the mail carrier is going to go out delivering the mail, there's nowhere for the mail carrier uh to rest or stay
Right.
that is not his or her route.
Well, I wouldn't suggest resting inside your car. I was a carjacking victim, as you know, last year, I believe, in April. Don't rest in your car. You know, even Mr. Griffin, the billionaire who left out of Chicago, he was carjacked. So when Griffin is carjacked, it's a bad city. You know what I mean? So there is absolutely no safety plan. They're on these routes. I have a friend that works with me that used to be a mail carrier, and he witnessed. I swear to you, he witnessed a shooting, and he knew this kid. This kid was 16 years old, died right in front of him. He's seen bullets go through this kid, and he thought, my friend, the mail carrier, he thought he was going to die too. So that's why he transferred to Bussy. He transferred to Bussy because he doesn't want to go in that area again. And it traumatized this man big time.
What neighborhood was it?
It was in the Austin neighborhood.
Mm.
So this is the issues we're having. At Austin neighborhood, by the way, is where the mayor is from. Johnson is from the Austin neighborhood, in which is crime is through the roof. Just look at the Sun Times, just look at the Tribune, just Google crime in Austin neighborhood. So if he couldn't fix the crime in Austin, how is he going to fix the crime in the city of Chicago? I don't understand why people voted for this guy. This guy doesn't know what he's doing.
When you spoke about the removal of the postal police, there's only a certain amount of officers. How do they follow the postal carriers? Is it by random? Do they know where they are and then occasionally appear and then see if they're okay?
Well, they took away, and when I'm saying the upper echelon, they took away postal police and they assigned them to distribution centers that's closing left and right. That's where they went. Okay. And there's absolutely zero protection for mail carriers. These politicians that get up there at the podium that says safe spaces and says all this about we need to have mailboxes within apartment complexes and buildings because that's what the safety plan is. Let's move all the mailboxes inside buildings. But what if you don't have access to that building? What if you're just an outsider that wants to mail a letter? You have to go 5 miles away to the nearest building to mail a letter inside a mailbox. That is ridiculous.
So that's
So
what they mean by safe spaces, just the like the blue mailboxes being contained within a post office.
office or a building, what have you, or a apartment complex. But here's the thing with that, if I may say. Okay. Also, safe spaces, eyes and ears. Neighbors, be the eyes and ears for our mail carriers. I kid you not. That's what Dickie D is saying, Dick Durbin. Eyes and ears. Most people are on their phone. Most people are on their headphones. Most people don't care. Most people don't care. How is that going to be your eyes and ears? No, you know what you need? You need an actual safety plan. All mail carriers should have the right to conceal carry. Get your license, get your FOID card from the currency exchange, get your concealed carry. It's 16 hours, and you should have the right. You're a federal employee. You're actually federal in property. Believe it or not, we are considered federal property. Okay. We have the right to protect ourselves. So I say all mail carriers should have the right to conceal carry. But these Democratic politicians, they won't tell you that. Although they have bodyguards with guns and concealed carries that protects their butt, and they have high fences at their houses, at their beautiful homes. They just get out there. They just like to have airtime. And at the end of the day, our dues goes to their campaigns, so they're reelected, so they look good. And at the end of the day, we get a 1.5% raise, and we have nothing to protect ourselves. And it's a shame. It's a shame.
Is there any move to get the boycotts for the postal employees? Is there anybody that's doing that?
No, because it's an anti-gun society in Illinois. Actually an anti-gun society for the law-abiding gun owners. It's not for the criminals. All these politicians are pro-criminal if you look at it. So it's okay for them to have guns and rob mail carriers and put guns in their faces, but it's not okay for us to have guns. How is that even right? That's not right at all.
For the postal police, before when they were still around, if
Oh,
the postal,
they're still around. It's just they're not,
when the postal carrier had a problem, were they supposed to call 911 or were they supposed to contact the postal police when the postal police was still protecting them?
postal police, if they were going on the mail carrier's route, they would see exactly what's going on. So there was no need to call the police because the postal police will take care of what's going on. You know what I mean? They have the right to use their whatever force necessary, okay, to take down the criminal that is doing harm to the mail carrier.
Yeah, we understand that, but there are a lot of postal carriers and not that many postal police. There's not like one police officer for every postal carrier.
Mhm.
So how do they choose which carrier to protect? Do you know?
Well, there were over 3,000. I believe if you look at it, it was over 3,000 postal police at one time. And I think they did have enough. It's just that they downsized. They downsized because of distribution centers being closed down. Uh, there's being cuts. If you look at, there's temps being hired, temps, instead of workers being turned over, workers that has been there 20 years or so, they're kind of forced to retire in a way. So there is already things in the woodwork that the Joy and upper management is doing in order to downsize.
So when
And,
you
and
talk
part of the
about,
downsizing was the postal police not covering mail carrier routes.
so when you said downsize, were any of the postal carriers being pushed out, or was it only the um distribution center workers being pushed out?
Well, it's across the board. It's across the board. There's also routes, if you look at it, I'm not necessarily in Chicago, but all throughout the United States, there's routes that are being canceled because the crime is simply too high, you know? Um, and it's going to happen in Chicago eventually. Crime is just through the roof, and there's going to be routes that are going to be canceled. And it's a shame where you have to pick up your mail.
Mhm.
We witnessed, uh, was it a month ago? Well, I didn't witness it. We seen it on the news where an actual post office was raided by 16, 17 punks. Raided. Who knows what they were trying to steal? Maybe arrow keys or whatever downtown. You remember that story?
Mhm.
So it's crazy what's going
Right,
out
right
there.
by the state of Illinois center
Right, exactly.
where it used to be.
Yeah. I mean, it's gone out of hand. It's gone insane. You've never seen such violence like this before. But the criminals are so brash. They don't care. They know that if they're caught in Cook County, they're only going to spend a minimal time in jail, if any, and very low bail. They know that. They're not that smart, these criminals, because they get caught. They're not very bright, but they're smart enough to know that we have a lenient justice system that's run by stupid Democrats.
When you said that the postal police are moved over to the distribution centers, what are the postal police protecting at the distribution centers?
They're protecting the mail. That's number one. They're protecting the mail. And they give out tickets if you're not parked in an appropriate spot. But that's neither here or there. I make sure I park in an appropriate spot. But they look and they make sure the mail is not stolen. And they're at places where you don't know where they're at. They know exactly the places in the distribution center to station themselves where you don't see them. And they're very good at what they do, and they're very brave and honorable people.
So who would steal the mail? The employees, or are there other outsiders that go into distribution centers to steal the mail?
We've had cases where employees have stolen mail. It's unfortunate. We've had cases where mail carriers have been robbed left and right. So it goes both ways on that one.
For the distribution centers, when they're trying to make sure that the mail is not stolen, is that are they trying to make sure that people don't break into the center, or are they just trying to make sure that the employees don't steal?
Well, they they look at everything. I
Mm.
mean, everything. They have like 100 cameras in a small little room, and they are very professional, and they look at everything. Even they look at things that are not significant to you and I. They look at that too, because that's your job essentially, and they get paid very well for it.
Do you have any idea about the how many police officers, the U.S. postal police officers there were and are now? Has the is the amount the same, and they've just been moved so that they do not protect postal carriers, or were their numbers reduced?
So over 3,000 a couple of years ago, and then they stopped the postal police following mail carriers on their routes, and people retire, people die, and then those positions closed, and no one, the upper echelon didn't want to hire. So that's part of downsizing. But that's the answer to your question, retirement and death. So, and then they just eliminate the position.
For the
But
postal police, you
correct,
mean?
correct. So the issue with that is when you cut down on safety, then you're basically shooting yourself below the knee. Okay. That's not good. Your safety should be number one. Safety with any business, any, and even a government business should be number one. Okay. You don't cut down safety. I can understand downsizing. I can understand consolidation. I can understand all of that. I don't understand the 1.5% raise. Everybody knows that. But I don't understand why you're cutting down on safety. That's very important.
Do you know what they justified when they cut down the safety? How they justified it?
Justified it by well, actually that's not really public until a few people talked about it. You know what, that's a very good question. You see politicians like Dick Durbin talking about safe spaces and all that stuff, but no one talks about the postal police, why isn't there enough postal police? Why aren't they covering the mail carrier routes? No one talks about that because it's hush hush. But now I'm on live radio and I'm talking about it. People would like to know why. And that's a very good question. I wish I knew the answer to that. There should be more. You're right.
Uh, when do they have you noticed? So once the postal police were removed from protecting the postal carriers, did the crimes against the postal carriers immediately rise?
Yes. Yes. It shot up through the roof. It was crazy. You did it's like the sign went out. Hey, criminals, come out. Come out of the woodwork now. They have no protection. They're sitting ducks. It's amazing. And these gangs, these low life gangs, they're smart enough to see that. They notice, hey, they're not protected anymore. Let's go against this guy. He won't do anything, and that's the issue.
Well, I know it's a different union from yours, but do you know if the postal carriers union is trying to do anything to uh, get the police back for their union members?
If they, I mean, if they wanted the postal police back to protect mail carriers, they would have done it a long time ago. They would have done it a long time ago. But it's like I said, they're in bed with Democratic politicians. It's all, it's intertwined. Everything's intertwined. Our dues goes to Democratic campaigns towards these elected officials that goes up to a podium and says, we need safety for our mail carriers. We need safe spaces. We need this. We need that. But at the end of the day, Dick Durbin is not out there on a mail route delivering mail in Inglewood. He's not out there. Where are you, Dickie D? No, he's on his sofa. He has his feet on the coffee table. Dickie doesn't care about the mail carriers in Inglewood or Austin. He says he does, but he doesn't.
What about the postmaster general? Is he a Republican? He was the one that removed the postal police. What justification did he say up for that?
Well, they say he's a Trump supporter. And I say that's great because Trump is beautiful. But other than that, his 10-year plan, it's robots coming in, taking over people. And I could see why he wants to do that because, like I said, what's coming in, there is no background checks as far as drug testing, and also there's no testing, period. So the quality of the worker is not as good as the one you had 20 years ago. It's a truth. It's 100% truth. I don't care how I sound, but it's true. Okay. And then when you have workers that simply don't give a damn, the quality of work is not going to go as fast. That's why you only have 10, 15 people at apps machines. That's the unfortunate part. That's why you have distribution centers closing down, and that's why everything has to be combined. So DeJoy is doing everything he can, and he, like I said, he has even said, mail handlers, we're going to need more mail handlers in the future. We're going to need more mail handlers in the future. So he doesn't want to cut jobs, okay? MHAs, unfortunately, they're going to go. That's just the way it is. They're just, part-time, and they know that. They know that. When you sign up to be an MHA and you look to be turned over, if you're not turned over in time, you know that there's a chance that your job is going to be cut. You know that coming in, okay?
Yes, did Joy ever mention bringing back testing so that the quality of the employees could be improved?
I don't know. That's a good question. I mean, he should definitely look into that. Um, I mean, if I had coffee with DeJoy, that would be one of my first questions to him.
What about the distribution points? When he said that he's going to close a lot of the distribution centers down, how does that again improve the delivery of the mail? If there's less links to and the trucks have to go further. He just wants more trucks on the road.
More trucks on the road, no more airmail unless it's foreign. He figures that trucks with huge loads can just hold more mail than a cargo plane, and it can go faster out because you got more trucks coming in than planes, cargo planes. And it just boils down to raw numbers if you just boil it down. So he figures it's a quicker, expedient way, and it's less costly as well.
What does do you have any idea what trucks versus planes have anything to do with distribution centers? Like if there were fewer distribution centers, how would that how would more trucks help?
You would have an overabundance of trucks if there was less distribution centers, and you have more people because of the consolidation. My I It's a good idea. It's probably the only idea really you can do. But the one thing I would have against that is you would have people on top of people, like I said. And with a lot of people around you during COVID, that might not be a good thing. So I'm hoping these distribution centers are so big where people can be spread out. That's all I'm saying. Because I don't know where I'm going to go at the end of the day. I just hope it's a very big complex.
Are they going to be building new distribution centers or
Yeah,
are they going to?
that's it. That's exactly it.
Do you know if there are going to be any built in the Chicago area?
I do not, but there's, as you know, there's one big one, right, on Harrison, the main one. So there's going to be people going there, postal workers going there. There's going to be postal workers going to the one at O'Hare. That's a big one.
Is that a new one?
No, it's been around a long time.
Okay.
And Forest Park too. Forest Park is the big one too.
And right now, you wouldn't be moved to those different distribution centers because there are enough workers there, and so the probably the only one that you're looking forward to is the new plants that are being built, the new distribution centers that are being built.
You gotta be careful. You can't move out of your facility before that facility closes down.
We understand that.
Because if you do, you lose your seniority. So you have to go down with the ship like the Titanic. It's unfortunate. And you wait, you wait, you wait, you wait, you wait, and hopefully they tell you where you're going to go. And if not, waiting process, and you have to collect unemployment. Do that right away. But luckily, the word's getting out, and with this radio broadcast, it certainly got out that our location is closing, and upper management can't hide it no more.
Have you seen postal workers, mail handlers that have been laid off, and then how long do they, on the average, have to wait before they find a new position, or you have no idea?
I have not seen a mail handler laid off. The ones that were turned over. I've seen MHAs turned or laid off, and they would come back. Not all the time, but I've seen them come back.
Well, do you like on the grapevine? There are other distribution centers like yours in the nation. Oh, by the way, this is WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM, and we have with us at WZRD Pat Gibbons, postal employee, talking with us about the state of affairs at the U.S. Postal Service. Have you spoken with any or postal workers, mail handlers, what have you, at other distribution centers that have closed? And then any idea about how long they had to wait before they could find another job? They were assigned to another center.
I have not. I don't know. See, that's the gray area.
Mhm.
It's just like a wait and see right now. I don't know what's going to happen. Just like the passengers of the Titanic, the ship was sinking. They didn't know what was going to happen.
What about the distribution centers? Could you give us a little bit about the numbers? How many are there currently? And then how many will be closed and how many have already been closed? If, I'm not expecting you to have all the numbers at your fingertips. Do you have any idea?
Numbers like closed facilities.
Yeah, a total about how many facilities and then how many have been closed and how many are slated to be closed?
There's actually you can look it up. United States Postal Service distribution centers closing.
Okay.
Well, you have to put USPS distribution centers in Chicago closing.
Mm.
And then there is a list of distribution centers that's going to be closed, that's probably going to close, all that.
And what about the are there any distribution centers within the Chicago area that have been closed already?
Not to my knowledge.
Mm.
Oh yeah, wait. Wasn't there one in Rogers Park that's closing?
Well, that's a post office. It's different from your
Oh, okay, the
distribution
post,
center.
oh, there's post offices certainly closing left and
Mhm.
right, I could tell you
Right.
that,
Mhm.
yeah. But distribution centers, I'm not aware of one. But yeah, a lot of post offices are closing.
Do you have any idea what they do with those distribution centers after they close? Do they um, repurpose them, sell them? Any idea about anything?
Well, our location is
Mm,
rented out,
mm,
so I'm assuming someone else will rent it.
mm,
Yeah, it's actually not an actual postal service distribution center, it's being rented out.
mm. It's just about how big is the facility? Do you have any idea about the square footage? About how big it
It's pretty
is?
huge, it's pretty big.
Mm.
And I don't know the square footage, but it's pretty big, you know?
And do you have any idea about how many employees over there are? So, will all those folks be?
I don't know how many employees. I know that we're usually shorthanded
Mhm.
and we do so much work. I was at work yesterday and I gotta tell you, this apps machine, huge apps machine, there was only like 12 people. So, like I said, it takes about 25 people to work an apps machine. There was 12. And I was at a spot on the apps machine. It's called the semi. The semi, basically, you're putting parcels and packages on a belt, and numbers are put up on the screen. And based on your numbers, that's what managers look at. They're
Mhm.
all looking at the numbers, let me tell you, as if it's the end all be all. And let me tell you something, these numbers can end managers' careers very quickly. Not with the Postal Service, I mean, as a manager, because as a manager, you're not protected by the union, you know?
Mm.
So if your numbers are not up, guess what? There's going to be a manager the next day, and
Mhm.
it's a shame. It's a cutthroat business at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And guys like me, that's making a 1.5% raise, I'm going to do everything I can to get those numbers up, of course. But if I can't do a great job at the end of the day, because not really me, but the machines, they're so old at a lot of the distribution centers, they shut down because of a parcel blocking a sensor, and that's another terminology. If a parcel blocks a sensor, then the whole machine shuts down,
Mm.
and then you have to wait. Then you wait, and then you retract, and then you put the parcel back on the belt. Then your numbers are building up again.
Mm.
So
Does that happen very often?
oh yeah, machines stop very often because of small parcels blocking sensors. It's
So,
very sensitive, these apps machines, especially at the older buildings. And this bussy rented place, rented facility, it's very old. The machines are very old.
Um, when you're waiting, you're not allowed to do anything else, or while you're waiting for the sensor to clear up,
Yeah.
are you able to do something else? Well,
Don't be on your phone. God help you.
mm,
They rather have you stand and look at the sky than be on your phone.
mm,
So when you're waiting, you're just waiting. There's nothing you can do because the machine operates everything. It operates where the mail goes, distributes to the various zip codes. So basically, a package goes around and around on a belt, okay?
mhm,
And it's scanned, okay? And then whatever zip code that package has, it'll drop into that zip code bag
mm,
automatically.
mm.
It's very interesting.
So the conveyor belt has little pockets of zip code containers below it, and
Exactly. That's it. Yep. Yep. Modern technology, right?
what about overtime? You said that people get overtime. Do you get overtime? You already work if a shift tours and then 5 days
Right.
a week, so you're already full time.
Right. Overtime is usually offered um, for the employees that have been turned over first. If they need anybody extra, they go for male MHAs and PSEs. They try to get male handlers or male MHAs to do overtime over PS or over clerks because clerks make more money than
Mhm,
male handlers.
mhm,
Usually distribution centers, it's male handler friendly with overtime, not the clerks. The clerks get great pay, starting pay, and they get a great contract where they get great raises within a year. But the catch 22 is you don't get much overtime, and managers knows that. So they overwork mail, specifically MHAs. They overwork mail handlers. If there is no MHAs, they'll ask you for overtime. They're very nice about that. Where they will kind of force MHAs. You have to stay 10 hours, like
What
it or not.
what's the difference for what they do between the postal clerks and the mail handler?
Clerks, they scan packages.
Oh,
They just scan packages. Um, Mail handlers were the grunts. We pick up the big packages. We pick up the big bags. We put it on the belt, and then you have bosses yelling at you to go
mm.
faster. You know what I mean? It's interesting. It's an interesting system. Try to do that for 25 years.
Well, it's a very difficult job with and it should be very prone to injuries. So
Hmm.
what are safety concerns there, and how often are people incapacitated? Do they get workers' comp?
Workman's comp is uh, I know a gal that had her Achilles tendon sliced from a BMC, and she's getting workman's comp. I know it sounds ugly. It is ugly. So it's essential workman's comp at where we work at.
Mm,
I know workman's comp is, I would hope, is given at every job. But here's the thing with government workers. It's like I said, we are actually government property. So every piece on your body, for instance, if I injured my hand, there's already a set rate for that hand. If I damaged my finger, there's already set money for that finger. So I don't know there's actually a list that will tell you for workman's comp uh, for what is damaged. This gal that had her Achilles tendon sliced by a BMC and also negligence from the hospital is expected to get over $300,000. But it's unfortunate she has to go through so much pain in order to get that. So there's a lot of injuries at the post office. So you got to be very careful. And when that happens, you got to write a report right away. Right away. You got to make sure to ask for medical assistance where an ambulance is picking you up. Okay. That's all documentation. And, you know, as government property, supposedly we're taken care of if something's damaged. But it's a very rough job. Very rough.
And how often are like backs and twisted or back injuries, because backs are actually very fragile, and then with all that heavy lifting and pushing, how often how long can a person last? Even like a young strong person, how long can they take that repetitive motion?
You see strong men after a while. I've only been there 3 years, but I could tell you the stories they tell me, and I see how they look now. Strong men that had straight backs. Now their backs are bending forward a little bit. You see folks walking out of um, the building walking like penguins. I kid you not. I'm not making fun, but penguins because of back pain, severe back pain. And I get back injuries because I already have a precondition. I have scoliosis and I have a Harrington rod in my back. So I feel it a lot. So back pain, it's all over the board, and especially if you have only 10, 12 people at an apps machine, what you're doing essentially is you're doing double the work. There's people at locations called boxes, for instance. I kid you not. I kid you not. One person per 50 boxes.
Mm.
Means when the box fills up, you put the box to the side, you're using a um now I can't think for whatever reason. You're using like it's like a dolly. You're pumping it up, okay? And you're trying to get the box to the side, but the supervisor is like, make sure you make a box cover. Make sure you scan out that box. And by that time, 3, 4 boxes are filled because you're doing 50 boxes. You come back, you get the other box. Make sure you get that box cover on out. Make sure you scan that box out. Okay. Hey, make sure you put a placard on that new box. Placards. Placards. That let me tell you what placards are. That's the name of the location where the box is going. The box has a lot of mail in that box, okay? So it tells you the name of the location and it tells you the zip code. We go by the last 3 numbers of the zip, okay? So no, I'm sorry. We go by the first 3 numbers of the zip. So if it's Chicago, we go by 606. 606 means Chicago.
Right.
So we would take the box out for 606, put in the section, put a cover on it, scan the box. Well, you would scan the placard, and then you go back real quick to get another box, and you scan the new placard, and then there's like 3, 4 other boxes that are filling up left and right, and then you have a boss yelling at you. I gotta tell you, that's why people will use their headphones. That's how you get through the day. It's the only way to get through the day, you know?
When you're saying boxes, are those the boxes that are contained inside the underneath the machine and the packages are dropping into their zip codes?
That's it. That's exactly. And then you also have bags too. Bags are very heavy. So you would have one person, I kid you not, for like 40 bags. And now these bags, you tie it up like garbage bags. So can you imagine? And then you have heavy. When these little red lights pop up, it's like popping up like an ambulance, a siren. So when the light goes off, you have to quickly tie the bag, put another bag there, and make sure that light is stopped popping red. Okay. And then you're throwing that bag in a BMC or an APC. Okay. But the thing is, when you're doing 40 bags at one time, 2 other lights are going off, 3 other lights are going off.
How do you catch up?
You don't. It's nonstop. It's nonstop. It's nonstop. That's why people have heart attacks, chest pain, back pain. And part of the problem I think is you have too many supervisors delegating orders instead of getting their hands dirty. They say, I used to do that. I used to do it. You should still do that. Now, if I was a supervisor, I would get my hands dirty. And at the same time, I would delegate orders, but in a way where it's like a team effort. And you don't have that at Bussy. And from what I hear, you don't have that at other distribution centers. The supervisor should get their hands dirty. I don't care if you're the plant manager. I don't care if you're the MDO. No one is, bigger than the other person at the end of the day. We're all trying to work together as a team, trying to distribute the mail out as fast as we can to the customer. And then you have a lot of that too, like I said, with some managers, it gets to their head.
MDO, that's the Managing Director of Operations.
There you go. That's another acronym. I'm telling you all this stuff with the post office. You're right. That's what it means. That's right.
Since they don't have enough people and then there is no testing now, why doesn't the post office hire more people to cover these positions so that there are enough hands on deck to work the machines?
They should. They absolutely should, but they don't. And I don't know why. They get MHAs, they get temps, and if they miss a couple of days, they get rid of them. So what happens? You're doing the workload again because there's no quality testing again. So you're getting whatever. You're just filling that spot. It's almost like contract security. I used to work contract security for many years. I don't care if it's Allied Universal. I don't care if it's Securitas. I don't care if it's Joe Blow Security. It doesn't matter. Okay? You are there just to fill a post. That's all you do. You fill a post at the end of the day. They just look at you as a body in a uniform.
And a piece of property.
Well, yeah, essentially. You got it. There you go. That's it.
What about board meetings? Have you ever gone to board meetings of the U.S. Postal Service? Are any held in Chicago
No,
where the public could know?
I've never, but maybe I should.
Because that would be a place to address these concerns. Not that they would do anything about it necessarily, but at least the word is brought to the board members that that's what the public is concerned about.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I would love to do that. Um, People have told me I should get more involved with board meetings and unions and stuff like that. And I might do that. Who knows?
Do you know how often the board meets?
I do not. I do not. That's stuff I should look into. I mean, before I was one of those guys that just didn't care. I assumed everything's beautiful, everything's okay. It's a government job. I'm gonna get a 4% raise, cost of living adjustment is gonna be great. And then I seen $208 for my cost of living adjustment. And then I seen a 1.5% raise in November. And I'm like, what the hell is this? So these are the reasons why I'm fighting back. Because this is not appropriate. This is laughable. You know what I mean? And it's disrespectful.
When the distribution centers close, so everybody is going to be laid off at the distribution center right away, right? Or are there some that are moved right away? Do you have any insight about what happens when they close? They have heard anything?
That's a very good question. The thing is, we don't know. We don't know. All I could tell you is that the mail handlers that were turned over, we will have a job because that's what the contract stipulates. No one can go against the contract, period. MHAs, their job is not safe, and they know that when they signed on.
Are they like independent contractors?
MHAs?
Yes.
MHAs don't have any rights, essentially. But now they get health benefits, so they got that perk. So, I think it's kind of misleading, though. It's good to have health benefits. Everybody should have health benefits. And that's just my opinion. But it's also a little misleading too to give them union representation, which they do have, because essentially they're not binded by the contract. They're not turned over. So there's very little the union can do for them. You know what I mean? They, at the end of the day, everybody seems to think they have rights. Yes and no. You know what I mean? Yes and no. A union steward can only do so much. They don't walk on water. You know what I mean? So if you're belligerent to a manager, chances are it's gonna be hard to save you. You know what I mean? So if, let's say, distribution center closes down, we're waiting, they look at your record, upper echelon can say, we want you to go to the complex and the distribution center in Indiana or in Michigan, knowing that you're like 40 miles away. They could do that to you too.
Do you know people who have been on the receiving end of such treatment?
I do not, but they can do that. Yes, you still have your job, but hey, let's give you a distribution center in Indiana. That is possible if if they don't like you. Now, if they like you and they say you're a good worker, all that stuff, and it depends on your seniority number, because we all have a seniority number. When you're called, who knows? Maybe they'll call us days before the place is closed down, but I doubt that's going to happen. So we look at reality. We look at, and I'm talking about the folks I work with, what happened to the people across the street. They were told the day before with a note by the time clock that stated, this building's closing, you don't have a job, basically. And I'm just paraphrasing.
Mhm.
And there were mostly MHAs, PSEs, and the mail handlers, and the clerks. They were assigned to different spots, but some of them didn't like the spots they were assigned to, so they essentially got another job. Because not necessarily people are going to like where you're assigned to. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
They don't have to take that. But then again, the post office doesn't have to give you a second option too.
Mhm.
And that's where the problem lies. And that's why there's a lot of worry, and we just don't know what's going to happen. We do know it's going to close down within the most 2 years.
And if they reject that offer to move to another facility, then they might actually lose their job, right? Because
Yeah, probably.
Mhm.
Probably if they don't like where they're going to be moved to. Sure.
What about managers? What is the status of managers if they're not represented by unions? Have you seen adverse outcomes for managers?
Managers, I've seen a couple of managers actually, I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it, bail ship. They seen the ship was sinking, so they went to another complex right away, and they got jobs over there. So managers are the first one that knows that the distribution center is closing down. So obviously, they get the best of the best choices. They know what's going on. They have the inside scoop. They keep it quiet for the rest of us, but to save their own skin, they'll do it. But you have good managers, they'll tell you what's going on. And that's how I know. And that's how other people know.
Mhm.
So those people, I well respect them, and I thank them for telling me. It really shouldn't be a secret. If some place is closing down, where you work at, you should have ample time to prepare, especially if you have a family, especially you have rent to pay. You want to plan for the future.
Mhm.
Don't tell people the day before. And not many people know that until now on live radio. I kid you not, across the street from Bussy, we had a building that closed down, and the employees had a notice the day before at the time clock saying, hey, you don't have a job, essentially. So I hope that doesn't happen to anyone in the future. That's disrespectful, and it's stupid. It sucks. I wouldn't want that to happen to anybody.
Do you know if a manager wanted to change to another workplace, like another distribution center? Does the manager have to switch, or do you not have any idea?
I don't know um, the criteria for that. Um, there is there is a specific wording for a manager. It's called 204B. There you go. It's coming back to me. 204B. And the 204Bs, they might become managers at other distribution centers, or they might just become employees.
Mm.
Because 204Bs, they're not, they didn't go through a test.
Mhm.
The actual big bosses, they went through tests. So therefore, wherever they go, they have to be a manager. So it all depends what type of manager. You got too many chiefs and not enough Indians. That's the issue here.
What about managers? You said that uh, well, they don't really have much of a say, but what did you say about the manager over them just now?
Well, you have 204Bs,
Mm-hmm.
and those are the managers that worry about the numbers.
Mm.
About the numbers, the numbers, the numbers.
Right,
We
right,
gotta
right.
get those numbers up. We gotta get those numbers up.
Mm-hmm.
Talking to guys like me, you know what I mean? Um, worry about if they're gonna have their job the next day. And
Mm-hmm.
then you have managers that went through a test that will be managers no matter what.
Mm. So even now, do they still have to take a test, or is it just that this group of managers took the test about 20 years ago and they're still working?
204Bs can always take the test to be turned over as a manager, okay?
Mm.
Some just like to stay as a 204B because you get like a $10 increase on your salary per hour, something like that.
Mhm.
So they like that. But the problem with that is if you're not, if you don't take the test, they could drop you like a fly the next day. There's no protection. You know what I mean? So that's a catch 22. If I would become a manager and I'm a 204B, I would want to take the test as soon as possible so no one can say, hey, Patrick, you're not working out. Numbers are low. Sorry, you know.
So as long as you have a good score on your test, then you're safer then, is what you're saying.
Well, if you pass the test and become a manager, it'll be a lot tougher for
An arbitrary firing.
well, not just that, but it will be tougher for another distribution center if you're transferred to not give you a manager position.
Got it.
Because that's your, expertise.
And what is
No manager in their right mind would drop from that position to like a mail handler. They wouldn't go back down.
But what is the job security again for managers? They don't have any, right? Because they're not union.
No, well, that's another thing altogether too. Everybody's protected by the contract if you pay dues or not, okay? No matter what. Okay, that's your right. But not many employees know that, and the union doesn't want to tell you that. So essentially, you can opt out of the union and still get the same rights in the contract if you're turned over. But the fact is, the union will never tell you how to do that, and it'll give you a tough time doing it. For instance, to get out of the union, it takes a year to do it after you file paperwork. And even then, it's no guarantee. They want you to stay in as long as possible. And along the way, they're going to be talking you out of doing that. Okay? So, because they want to make sure money is given to Democrats within their campaign so they're reelected so they can negotiate a contract that, makes them look good. But a 1.5% raise, come on. That doesn't make anybody look good. It's just horrible.
How much union dues do you pay per paycheck?
And it all depends. It's once a month, from what I've seen. I don't know the exact amount. I have to look that up. But every little bit counts, and I feel like I'm just paying dues at the end of the day.
Do you have a relationship with your union steward? Like what you discussed with me today, have you spoken with the union steward about this?
I love the people of the union. They're awesome. They're awesome. This one gentleman, his name is Manny. He's the best. He's the best. Can't say enough about him. He's a great guy, great gentleman. He's very informative. It's not the people that work in the union I fault for the raise. It's the people that's at the top, that's hand in hand with Democrats, that pretend that they care and they don't care. Okay, so Manny he's not the one that makes the rules for the union. He helps you out. He's a good union steward. There's a difference. So you have to know who's behind the curtain, who's making moves, and who's trying to fight for you at the end of the day. Okay, if I was at the top of the echelon with the union, and I believe it's called 301 something, I would fight for a better raise. I would also fight for relief for COVID too. People are still suffering from COVID. People are still taking time off from COVID. Okay, but you're not paid for COVID anymore. I don't understand that.
When did that stop?
That's a good question. I want to say it stopped sometime last year, I believe. For CPS teachers, my girlfriend, she gets COVID pay. She gets COVID pay when she takes time off if she has COVID. CPS does that, but mail handlers and carriers and whatever clerks for the United States Postal Service, government workers, we don't get COVID relief anymore. But there's a lot of people suffering from COVID. The news won't talk about it as much, but there is. There's still people dying from it, and there's people sick from it. And I've seen it too at the distribution center. So that's one of the main reasons why I'm against consolidation, because you have people on top of people during COVID, and could be a scary scenario, you know. But that the union should have fought for benefits for COVID, and they didn't.
Mm. Well, the consolidation and the benefits, they're mostly tied with uh, management at the top, like the joy and the administration, right? When the union doesn't fight hard enough to get what you need, it means that the administration is not willing to even uh, do it for the employees.
Hmm. Well, I don't. I mean, I'm not behind the curtain. I'm not at the meetings. I'm not at the board meetings. Next time I come on this show, I guarantee you I'll hit at least one board meeting. Okay. I'm going to hit some sort of meeting where I know what's going on behind closed doors. I'm going to see who's talking about what, who's informative, but I can only look at results. Results show that our union didn't fight strong enough for the things I've just specified, like a raise, cost of living adjustment, and COVID. We get no relief for that. Yes, we can take time off, but we're not paid for it.
Mhm.
We're not paid for that time.
Do you know what the policy is for family leave? Like
FMLA,
mm,
yes, you have to have a certain amount of hours in order to get FMLA. Okay, and you get a note from your doctor, like anywhere else, and you give it to this office. It's called a tour office,
mhm,
and they put it in the computer, and whatever days you need off, that's it. But you have to have accumulated a certain amount of hours working at the post office
mm,
in order to be um, in order to get FMLA.
mm,
At least that's what I was told in the
mm,
attendance office. So
mhm.
yes,
And you're not too sure about how many hours you have to
I
accumulate.
believe it's over 1,200 hours.
Oh. So
That's a
how
lot of
many hours
hours.
have you worked, do you figure? Like 40 hours a week, were you 40 hours from the beginning, or when you moved up then you got more when you got turned over?
No, I usually do overtime, so it varies my hours per week. Sometimes I work 60 hours a week. Sometimes I
Uh,
work 50 hours a week, but I always do overtime every week.
mm,
Yeah. If they offer it, sometimes they don't. Like on RDOs, RDOs is your regular day off, and that's when you get paid time and a half. I always try to hit at least one RDO, and most people that work for the Postal Service, they work 6 days a week, and they hit at least one RDO
mhm,
because they know that's where the money is at.
mm. What does
Especially
IDL stand for?
regular day off.
Okay.
That's another acronym.
Especially what now?
Especially when you start off at like $17 an hour, $18 an hour, which nowadays that's not a lot of money. It's not a lot of money. Minimum wage is up to 15. And when minimum wage is up to 15, you're a federal worker only making $3 more. And when someone's flipping burgers at McDonald's making 16, 17 bucks an hour, you're thinking to yourself, that's not fair. That's not fair at all. So we try to make it up. And this is when you first start now, 18 or whatever. We try to make it up with time and a half. So obviously that would be $27 an hour, half of 18, 9, 9 plus 18, 27.
Mhm.
And we do 2, 3 hours of time and a half. But again, it's a back-breaking job. And I mean, when you get a decent check, you feel like you're in pain all over your body.
When you let's just cover a little bit of the safety concerns. So there's the danger to your back. What about like being crushed or cut? How prevalent are other safety concerns at the workplace? Are you allowed to talk about that? If not,
Uh,
that's okay.
yeah, I mean, no, I could talk about that. For instance, at Bussy, there was an issue with plates. Okay. Um, like the plates on at the dock were up. And that's how this gal got hurt. She was rowing a BMC, and actually she got cut by a plate
Mm,
at the dock. It wasn't, these plates on docks, they're supposed to be flat. Well, this one wasn't flat. It was messed up.
Yeah.
And that's how she got her Achilles tendon. She was moving at BMC and a plate cut her back of her ankle.
Oh.
Yeah.
What are the
So the
plates
safe,
for again?
so what's that?
What are the plates for again?
Plates are on the dock, and that's where you load
Mm.
stuff. You know, you pat you go you roll the BMCs on a plate.
Oh,
Okay. You
mhm.
have to see it for
Yeah.
you know. So a lot of the plates at this location were simply messed up.
Mhm.
And there was not one incident, it was two incidents. So when the word gets around, you know, people from upper management, they want to hush hush and make sure all the plates are fixed. And now all the plates are fixed
Mhm.
and nobody's cutting their Achilles tendon no more, which is a good thing.
Mhm.
Because it will be lawsuit after lawsuit. And they're probably a little pissed off that I'm announcing this, but it's true. You got to fix, you know, areas within your distribution center that's workable. And, you know, otherwise you're going to get hurt. So plates are a big issue. Sometimes this happened with me. The BMCs are so old, you know, they're 20, 30 years old. The wheels fall off on it sometimes. A BMC once fell on my foot. Yeah. Oh, you know, because the one wheel was so loose and I thought it broke a bone in my foot. I was picked up by an ambulance and thank God nothing was broken.
Did you say that they weigh about half a ton?
Two
The
tons, 2 ton BMC crashed on my foot. There was also an APC. The wheel collapsed on that and it knocked me in the head. So I made an incident report with that. There was a time where I was picked up in an ambulance because I had severe chest pain. I thought I was having a heart attack, severe stress.
Mhm.
In 1 year alone, I was picked up in an ambulance by 3 times. 3 times I was picked up by an ambulance in 1 year. I'm not saying I'm glass, but I'm just saying it's a hard job, you
Yeah.
know? And it takes dedicated, very loyal and hardworking employees to do this type of job. And for the most part, there's a lot of people in the postal service that does a great job,
Mhm.
for the record.
Mhm. What about your fellow employees? Are they as they also have different safety issues too, right? The issues that you described, it would affect them
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, yeah. You have faulty APCs, faulty BMCs. Um, you know, you have faulty plates on docks.
Mhm.
Uh, the list goes on and on. Um, you know, if it's not the equipment you have to worry about, you have to also worry about packages too. One time I was picking up this box, right,
Mhm.
with all these bees, honey bees inside the
Uh-huh.
box. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Did you hear them inside?
I seen them. There was only a cage separating me and the bees.
Okay.
So there's wood on the side,
Mhm.
and that's where you're supposed to grip it. And we wear gloves, and there's a loose, well, not, well, there's holes in the cage.
Mhm.
There's these holes so the bees can stick out. You know, not thinking, I put my thumb on the cage.
Mhm.
And I got stung.
Mhm.
So that you got to watch out for what packages you pick up.
Mhm.
I once picked up a box with birds. I kid you not, people, male birds.
Mhm.
I know it sounds weird. A bird pecked me in my hand, you know, because, you know, obviously the bird was nervous. I did not drop the package. I put it on the belt. I was pecked on the hand, and then I just washed my hand with soap and water and put a Band-Aid on there. So, you know, yeah, people are saying you should have got a tetanus shot, whatever. No, I was okay, you know, whatever. But these are the injuries we go through. Bees in a box, birds in a box. You know, there's much more. I've seen ugly, ugly bugs inside a box. You have some disgusting, disgusting smells. The odor is so bad, and you're like gagging, you know?
Is it
With
something decomposing? What is it?
no, no, I'm not. I'm just saying with some packages, you
Oh,
just don't know what's in it,
oh,
but
okay.
you have to process it.
Mhm.
Who knows what it could be? You know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Mhm.
But you have that too, you know? So it's an interesting job. You have to deal with certain smells, certain, you know, hazardous packages, faulty equipment. You know, that's the day-to-day operation at a distribution center, you know?
Well, before we close up, tell us What's your favorite part of your job?
My favorite part of my job is the fact that I'm well respected. I've done many press conferences talking up for postal employees. Specifically, my best one was with Kira Coles. Miss Kira Coles has been missing for a long time. She was a mail carrier, and no one knows where she's at, and I hope she's found. I hope the family um, will get immediate answers. And because of the press conference I had regarding Miss Kira Coles, the FBI wasn't involved for a long time. And we don't understand why, because she's a federal worker. We called out the FBI to do their job. Please do their job. Please find Kira. And now, thank you, Jesus, the FBI is working on the case. It was a cold case until we did a press conference, and now the FBI is working, and that's a beautiful thing. And she's been missing for such a long time, and that's one of the biggest joys I love is doing press conferences, talking up for fellow employees like Kira, like many others, like our rights, for instance, because at the end of the day, my brothers and sisters at the United States Postal Service, we do a service for others. We do a service. And as such, we should be respected. We're respected in the community. We should be respected within the Postal Service, with the upper management, with our own union. And certainly, we should have safety too. Safety is very important. And I love advocating. I love talking up. I feel that's my calling, you know. Even let's just say, because there's Democrats within the system, as we all know. Let's say I was transferred out to Alaska, Nome's Alaska, because they don't like me. I'll still be talking up for the brothers and sisters at the United States Postal Service because they're beautiful people and they do such a great service for others. So that's what I love. I love advocating. I love talking up. I love doing press conferences. And as far as job goes, I just love being part of the Postal Service because that title of being a government worker, that's prestigious to me. That means you're doing a service for others. And that's been my model for my entire life is others, doing good for other people. And I feel I'm in the right spot in my life.
Mhm. Oh, what about the FBI? How soon did the FBI start investigating the Kira Coles case after your press conference?
The next day. They didn't wait. Because when you do a press conference, and this one went viral, okay? It went so viral, it went national. We were on every radio, we were on every TV, okay? Because this is a big case. It was a cold case. And when the FBI hears them being called out, hey, this is a federal worker, you should have done something a long time ago, then all of a sudden they act. And it's unfortunate you have to do something like that in order to kick them in the butt and do their job.
Mhm.
And I don't care if they look at my phone after this interview, but they should have done their job a long time ago.
And when was this press conference in case our listeners want to look it up?
It was last year. Just look up USPS Kira Coles Pat Gibbons on YouTube. My name is spelled P-A-T. My last name is spelled Gibbons. Kira Coles, USPS Pat Gibbons. You'll see it. Raul Montes, another community activist, was involved with that, and it was a great press conference. I would say it was my best. Also, Miss Cole's mom was there too.
Mhm. Well, Pat Gibbons, U.S. Postal employee, thank you so much for joining us at WZRD Chicago 88.3 FM today and discussing the state of the post office in your workplace. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.